It's not your fault. It's not your fault where you were born. It's not your fault who your parents were. It's not your fault the culture that you live in, the family culture that you grow up in. It's not your fault what the government does. It's not your fault what your health conditions are. It's not your fault what your weight is. It's not your fault any of this stuff. We didn't ask to come into this world. We were just brought in, but here we are, right? Too much access to too much good things. For example, like food. Those things can also become a problem. And that, again, isn't your fault. It isn't my fault. It isn't anyone's fault. That being true, we're in a place where it is within our ability to do things about this. We work with what we get. We get our lot in life, and we've got to do what we can with it. And we can do a lot with it. So within my own life, a great example of this is that, I grew up 30 kilos overweight, or ended up 30 kilos overweight at 13 years old. And, I was just eating chips and chocolates and lollies all day. All I wanted to do was play video games. I hated sport. I hated activity. All I wanted to do was be on the couch playing games. I avoided it at all costs. And, my family wasn't sporty. Everyone was into IT. We literally ate takeout most days of the week, that wasn't my fault. I was born into that, and it wasn't their fault for doing that. Mum and Dad didn't know anything about nutrition, and they weren't taught, so why would they know? And that's not their fault, and then it's not my fault for being born into that. But those are the circumstances. And once I was able to wake up and notice that, and I was able to identify what I could take action on, or the difference that I could make in my own life, identifying that and then just applying myself in that direction is where it all began. And where you can end up from where you began is an amazing difference. I would never have thought that I'd get to where I am now and who I am now. As they say, you'll end up where you're going. If you don't change direction, you'll end up whatever direction you're going in. If you don't actually make a shift or a turn, you'll end up where you're going. Often, this is the phrase around this would be something like, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. And I like that term, but the responsibility is a very loaded term. The word responsibility still has a sense of fault in it, it's your responsibility, you were responsible for this. And so I'm just getting away from that. The word responsibility can be broken down into this response able. So that you're able to respond. And that's the message here. We have power to respond to the circumstances that we have been born into. At this time, we didn't choose to be born in this time. And this time has these challenges. And the challenge of too much food. It's probably a better time to be born. It's a better problem to have, too much food than too little. We can't control how much advertising there is around food, how much abundance there is of junk in your life, depending on the way that your parents were and are. All these temptations, we can't control a lot of these temptations, but we are response able. We are able to respond to the cravings we have, to the situations and circumstances in our lives, and that is power. That is the message that I want to give out to the world, is that look, none of this is our fault. It's not your fault where you are, but there's a lot you can do to influence where you are. That's a very important thing, to not feel powerless, to know that you can do the best you can with what you've got. Absolutely. Whatever circumstances that you're in, there's something that can be done. Even if it's just a little, even if it's the littlest thing, it can grow from there. And that's the thing. It's identifying the tiniest thing that can be done. Whether if you're doing no activity at all at the moment, that's the lifestyle that you've sort of fallen into, then that you can do 1 10-minute walk a week, for example. And then from there, it can become longer, or you can do more often. Start where you can. I was having a conversation with my brother-in-law. I used to train him before he had his first son. He's now 6 years old. When he had his first son, he stopped training. Recently, he started up again, and so probably in the last 6 months. And but it was like a 6-year break there, you know. And I said to him, look, if you had just been coming once a week, and at the time, once a week doesn't really feel like much. It doesn't feel like you're really doing anything, you know. It's just like, oh, each week is, you know, it just feels like, kind of, what's the point? But I just reflected on this with him the other day. I said, imagine if you had just kept coming once a week for the last 6 years. You would have done over 300 workouts. That's a big deal, you know, over a long enough period of time. You know, imagine a body that has done 300 workouts, or a body that's done none. It's a different body. It's over a long enough period of time that, you know, even a small amount of consistency builds up. And when you're feeling better and feeling stronger, then you want to do more. You know, you're empowered to do more. You know, and it just sort of keeps that reminder of how good you feel when you do it present in your life, you know, and makes you feel empowered to do just a little bit more. You know, if you haven't worked out for a whole year, you know, 365 days, you know, that's a lot different than having trained for, you know, every 7 days, you know, even if it was only for 10 minutes, you know, it's still something that's in your life. There's something that's there, it's present, it's front of mind, you know, it's part of your routine, even if it's a weekly or a monthly routine. There's something there, and you can build on that. You know, you can build to twice a week, or you can build to whatever it is that you're doing. Just know that it's valuable to do, you know, and it may not get your results immediately, but it can grow and it can become more, and that is absolutely beautiful, that we can start small. You don't have to do it all at once, and neither could you, right? So, you know, it's not your fault. It's not your fault what your circumstances are right now. It's not your fault how much that you can do or can't do right now, but you can do something. You absolutely can, and it can grow and become more. So just as we were talking about there, it's not your fault, the circumstances you're born into, the genetics that you have, you know, the upbringing that you had, the parents, all these things aren't your fault. These are all a unique set of circumstances that you have been born into. Where you are right now is not your fault, right? And where you go is going to have to be unique to you as well. You know, your circumstances of where you are unique, where you need to go is unique. No one can tell you what to do. You have to just plant it in your life with something small and meaningful, and just nurture it in your life, and you will be drawn to it, and then you water it, you bring sunlight to it, you do these things, and it grows, right? If you just smother it with guilt and shame and saying you should be doing more, and, you know, and berating yourself for what you aren't doing, that is going to kill it. So don't let anyone tell you what you should or shouldn't do, what you do or don't have to do. You do what makes sense and is doable, and that is your journey. You know, you can be able, and, you know, take the power and control that you do have, and apply it to the smallest thing. And over the course of time, will make a massive difference and send your life in a whole new direction. And that's wonderful. So in summary, look, it is not your fault. Right, but you do have power to make a difference in your life with the circumstances you've got and the genetics you've got and where you're at. You absolutely have power to change the direction of your life from here. You can't change everything in a day, but you can change your direction in a day, in a moment. You can change your direction, and that's all you need to do to end up somewhere different. That's all we have time for today, and I hope you enjoyed that and got something out of it. Like, subscribe. Share it with a friend if you think that they would get something out of that, and I'll see you next time.